Hello, my friends. Welcome back. So, Halloween approaches, or as they have it in Ireland, Samhain, the thin time of the year, when the veil is thin between the worlds. A perfect time for telling stories such as this one from the Boyhood deeds of Fionn Mac Cumhaill. And this story is set at Samhain and traditionally would have been told at Samhain. And here is the story of Aillén the Burner. Long ago, long ago, Fionn Mac Cumhaill, Fionn son of Cumhail, was making his way to the High King, the seat of the High Kings at Tara, on the plain of Tara in the centre of Ireland, which for centuries had been the seat of power in Ireland. Now, Finn's father, Cumhail, had been the king's right-hand man, the leader of the Fianna, those warrior poets that defended Erin and Alba from invasion. But Finn's father had been betrayed by a man called Mac Midhna, a mountain of a man. It was said of Gull that he did not open doors, he walked straight through them. And Gull and his 3 sons were now leaders of the Fianna and stood at the right hand of the king. But Fionn he had learned from the salmon of wisdom that it was his rightful place to avenge his father's death and receive his seat at the right hand of the king of Ireland, Con of 100 battles. So he was making his way there, and it took him a long time to reach the plain of Tara, the seat of the High Kings at Tara. But he eventually arrived, and he arrived at about this time of year. Now it was entering the dark half of the year, and traditionally at this time of year there was a truce for a few weeks, so no score could be settled, no fights, no quarrels. All men had to be at peace with one another. So Fionn couldn't reclaim his father's title of the leader of the Fianna by any kind of force or trickery. He had to win it fair and square. And that moment would show itself. So Fionn approached the great city of Tara, a huge fortified enclosure with a great wooden palisade wall all the way around it, and then another one, and then lots of sort of round houses, and then a great house that was the house of the king himself. And everyone was gathered in the court of the king Con of 100 battles. And Fionn walked into this place with his beardless face and his beautiful curls, just like his father. Everyone recognized him. Surely this was the son of Cumhail. And the king kindly said to Fionn, what have you come for? And Fionn said, I've come to take my seat at the right hand of the king. And he said, fine, come in, have some mead, have some meat, sit down with these fine men. And he was seated right next to the king's own son. After all the feasting was done, things took a bit of a darker turn, and the king started to speak of the business, and it was coming to that time of year, Samhain, when they would have to leave Tara. The reason was, every year for the last 23 years, on Samhain night, when the veil is thin between the worlds and the people of the Sídhe, the others, can walk abroad, walk among the realms of mortals, because the thin places are open. And every year for the last 23 years, one of the Sídhe, one called Aillen the Burner, walked from one of the burial mounds out of the opening of one of the burial mounds just over that hillside over there, and he would stalk across the land, and he would play his dulcimer, his magic fairy dulcimer, with music so beautiful that men could not even record, could not even remember the music, but it lulled them to a sleep, a deep stupor. It was like chloroform. Everyone just fell asleep. All the warriors at their posts along the walls fell into a deep, deep sleep. And then Aillen the Burner emitted a great laser, a great tongue of fire from his mouth that incinerated the whole city of Tara, and any men that were asleep were burned to death. So these days, everyone just, they rebuild Tara every year just in the hope that Aillén would not come again, but they always evacuate the city on Samhain night, on Halloween night, to escape with their lives. So it was very dejected, and the young boy, Fionn, full of the presumption and pluck of youth, who had not ever witnessed these events, said, "I will stop Aillen the Burner. If I do, will you restore the rightful place to me, as was once my father's?" Conn of 100 battles, the High King of Ireland, said, of course, my young lad. I wish you all the best." But secretly he was thinking, what a shame. His father was a noble man that met a sorry end, and clearly now his son will too, because none could face Aillén and live. So, there was among that assembled company someone that knew Fionn, or rather knew his father. It was his father, Cumhail's right-hand man, and he recognized the father in the boy and wanted to help him. He went to Fionn privately that night, introduced himself, said he knew his father, and said that he wanted to help him at a certain price. "I can help you defeat Aillén," he said, but if and when you succeed, I want, a third of all of the riches you win, and I want to be your right-hand man when you are leader of the Fianna. Fionn agreed. You see, he had tasted of the salmon of wisdom, and he could see all possible futures, and he had seen that there was a future where he had defeated Aillén. He knew it was possible. It is not possible to resist the sleeping powers of Aillén's musical instruments. Not even, you can't put wax in your ears, Odysseus style, against the sirens. That won't work. But there is a way. "Tell me," said Fionn. "Here," and he produced a long item. "This was the spear of Aillén that your own father, Cumhail, went into the other world to steal. This is the monster's own weapon." And he took off the sheath, the leather that was wrapping around it, and this hideous kind of light and stench poured from it. And he said, "It is covered with dark magic. Great poisonous pain will course through the body of anyone who is wounded by it. What you need to do is stick the point of this spear into your forehead, through the skin, into your skull. The pain will be excruciating, but you will not die, and you will not fall asleep. This is the only way to resist the fairy music of Aillen the Burner." After that, I leave the rest to you. So, for the next few days, as Samhain approached, people would talk to Fionn as if he was already a dead man. They'd say, "Well, it was nice chatting to you, Fionn." And they, Fionn could tell that, behind, they were thinking like, "I'm not going to see you again. You're going to be burnt to death, aren't you?" But Fionn had the spear and he had a plan. So, Samhain night approached. The great fires were lit, but then the High King and all his retinue and all the Fianna and all the druids and all the aristocrats and all the servants and all the animals and everyone was led out of Tara. It was deserted, and Fionn, with the setting of the sun, was standing on the great ramparts alone. It was not cold, but he shivered. The moon rose, clouds quickly scudding across its surface. And there, Fionn could see, as the night grew long, he could see the veil becoming thin between the worlds, and in the moonlit hills in the distance he could see the burial mounds, and he could see a great dark shape, huge against the horizon, long limbs, faceless, but he could see two burning eyes like coals, moving, walking over the horizon like a great shadow, getting nearer and nearer and nearer. Fionn descended from the palisade walls and walked out of the main gates of Tara. It was eerie, not a single watchman or guard up in the watchtowers or out on the gates, just him. And he went and stood on the great, wide, empty plain of Tara, with the citadel of the High King behind him, as this thing, Aillen the Burner, approached, tall, awkwardly moving. You see, the Sidhe are not used to the mortal world. They're not used to air or gravity or moisture. So he moved in a strange, ethereal, ungainly way. And as he got closer and closer and closer, he did not see Fionn down on the ground, this huge thing. And then Fionn could see the creature get out his fairy dulcimer and play this most beautiful music. And there, then, hearing the first note and feeling his eyes begin to droop, he got out the spear, unsheathed it, and shoved it right here, right where the third eye is, right into his skull, and it pierced his skin and pierced his bone, and the pain just flooded through Finn's veins, and it was all he could do not to scream. But he did not sleep. The pain kept him wide awake. Then, finally, the music was ceased. Strangeness, a great stillness lay upon the place. Not a blade of grass moved. The clouds had suddenly stopped scudding, and the moon was there, full over Samhain, a yellow moon. And then Aillén the Burner, his eyes already red, his nostrils like two slits, towering high above Fionn. Aillén opened his mouth. Like a tongue of flame, like a laser, just ignited all the ramparts. And behind Fionn was a great blaze, bigger than any Samhain blaze. He could feel the heat, even though it was far behind him, and he let out a gasp. And the thing saw him and opened its mouth again, ready to incinerate Fionn, and a great tongue of fire leapt out. But Fionn, thinking quickly, he took off his cloak and threw it in one direction, and he ran in the other. And this laser of fairy fire just struck his cloak, incinerated it, and dropped down and melted a hole in the ground, a vast, vast hole dropping away from Fionn and Aillén, and it is still there to this day, a great gulf in the ground in the plain of Tara in Ireland to this day. Fionn had bought a tiny bit of time, and there, being close to Aillén now, he threw Aillén's own spear, and it flew through and struck Aillén right in the face, and the thing screeched and made its way awkwardly away, stumbling in fear. This always went like clockwork every time for the last 24 years, but now something had got wind to it, and it was afraid. Aillén, the creature of the Sidhe, was not in its own world. It hurried quickly away, and as it hurried, it got smaller in stature, less serene and tall, more goblin-like. It was going on all fours, back to the Sidhe mound, back to the burial mound, back to the portal to the other realm where it would be safe. But Fionn was running, following the blood, following the trail, this spear still sticking out of this hideous creature of the Sidhe as it made its way back to its own land. And just before it got to the doorway, to the portal, to the opening into this burial chamber, Fionn unleashed his sword and drove it through the monster and turned into smoke and darkness and faded away just on the threshold of that burial mound. But its head, this shriveled little thing, devoid of fire now, remained. And Fionn plucked it up, stuck it on the tip of that spear, and carried it back to Tara, trophy of his victory. The next day, The men of Ireland, the king and all the court returned to the palace of Tara. They could see the outer walls were incinerated, but everything else was still intact. They were overjoyed. 24 years, every year, the whole palace of the Gaels was burnt to the ground. This time, the seat of learning, the seat of poetry, the seat of courage, the seat of man remained. Finn was a hero. And Con of the 100 Battles said, "What will be your price?" And Finn said, "My rightful place as the leader of the Fianna." And Con turned to Go, Mac Morna, the killer of Finn's own father, and said, "Go, you will either serve under Finn or you will leave Ireland. Those are your choices." And Go, Mac Morna, the mountain of a man, bent down on one knee and agreed to serve under Fionn Mac Cumhaill. And under the leadership of Finn, the Fianna entered a golden age. They weren't just warriors, they were poets as well. And many of the stories, tripping on the tongues of storytellers from then until now, reached our appreciative ears. They are the Fenian cycle of Irish mythology. So, my friends, interesting story, that one, for Halloween. Just something about the she there. The she are sort of the others. Maybe in more sort of Germanic cultures, we might call them sort of elves, maybe similar to elves. But in sort of Irish mythology, the she were the old gods, the Tuatha Dé Danann, the children of Danu, that came from another land to Ireland, bringing magical items, and they were the old gods, you know, the Doida, the Morrigan, Nauda, Lu of the long arm, all these guys, maybe once upon a time in the Iron Age, would have been worshipped as gods, but in mythology, they were eventually defeated by the Gaels, the ancestors of the present day, and then they were banished. They were banished beneath the sea, hidden by Manannán mac Lir, or banished behind invisible walls that they can see through, but mortals can't. So they are here all the time, or sometimes they live beneath the burial mounds or behind certain thin places, always here in the same space as us, but can't be accessed except for certain thin times of year, like Samhain. So, if you are out at night this Halloween and, you know, in an old place of power, just be aware of the she, because they are in the same physical space as us, and they can see you even if you can't see them. So, my friends, this Halloween, maybe raise a drink to the old ones and pour a bit of ale on the ground so they will drink that and not destroy your lives. So if you want to hear more stories from the exploits of Fionn Mac Cumhaill, I'll put a link here, or maybe you want to see a video about Halloween, I'll put that there. Thank you, my friends, for watching. I'll see you next time.